Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read S3 3193 Adventure Box More Than Ever, More Than a Book of Victor the Wild Child. Chapter 1 Living Like an Animal. This is a true story. It happened almost 200 years ago in the south of France. A woman was out picking mushrooms in the forest when she saw something very strange. She was so horrified that she ran back to the village, screaming. She told everyone the strange creature ran on all fours but then stood up on two legs. It had a mane of black hair on its head. The next day, hunters went to search the forest. The dogs soon found the tracks of a creature that climbed the trees and galloped through the bushes. The creature tried to hide in a hole, but the dogs surrounded it. It attacked them, biting one dog on the throat. At last the hunters caught it, but the creature was not an animal, it was a child. The boy was naked, his body was covered in mud, and his nails were long and hard. Like claws, he was a wild child. The boy was wrapped in a shirt and locked up in the police station. He was dirty and he smelled bad. He growled at people and tried to bite them. He tipped the food he was given onto the floor and rolled it in the dust. Then he mashed it up with his finger before putting it in his mouth. The police chief was disgusted by the boy's behavior. He said to himself, the sooner we get rid of this animal, the better. As the boy could not speak, it was decided to send him to Paris to a school for deaf-mute children. The wild child story was reported in all the newspapers. Everyone wanted to know about his life in the forest. They were curious and lots of people went to the school to have a good look at him. They asked the nurses, what does he eat? Why can't he say anything? You say he is 11 or 12 years old, but he does not know how to do anything. An 11-year-old knows how to do. The boy didn't even look at them. It was as if he could not hear anything. He sat huddled in a corner, rocking backwards and forwards. The visitors were disappointed. They soon lost interest and went away. Knowing no more about him than before, they said, he's just a poor idiot. He will never be able to learn anything. A young doctor called Jean Itar lived near Paris. He treated deaf children. So when he heard that a wild child had been caught in the woods, he was very interested. He discussed the story with his housekeeper, Mrs. Guerin. I'm sure that boy is not an idiot, he said, but everyone says he acts like an animal, replied Mrs. Guerin. Of course he does, said the doctor. He has never lived with people. What do they expect? He does not know how to speak, dress himself, or eat off a plate, but children don't know how to do things on their own. Poor boy, sighed Mrs. Green, growing up alone in the forest. He must have got lost long ago. I don't think he got lost, said Dr. Ittard. He has a long scar on his neck. My guess is that someone tried to kill him when he was little. They abandoned him in the forest thinking he was dead. But the wound healed and he lived. Dr. Ittard could not stop thinking about the wild child. At last, he said, Mrs. Guerin, I'm going to bring the child here. I will try to educate him so that he is like other children. It'll be hard, I know, but will you help me? Mrs. Guerin was a kind and loving woman. She agreed to help the doctor to look after the child. Chapter 2 Living in a House. Dr. Itar went to the school for deaf children to collect the boy. It was a cold, rainy day. The wild child was squatting on the path outside the school. He was holding up his face to the rain. His torn shirt was sticking to his wet skin. Dr. Itar asked, so he does not feel the cold then? The head teacher of the school explained, no, and he does not feel heat either. I've seen him grab burning embers out of the fireplace with his bare hand, and he didn't even cry out. When Jean Itard arrived home with the boy, Mrs. Guerin was waiting for them on the doorstep. She said in a kind, gentle voice, "Hello, my dear. This is your home now. You will be safe here with us." Dr. Ettard smiled. "You are right, Mrs. Guerin. We must talk to him as much as we can. Nobody has ever talked to him before." Mrs. Guerin cut the boy's nails and his hair, then she prepared the bath for him. He got in happily and seemed to enjoy it. He splashed about in the water, made happy little noises. Dr. Ettard came into the room with a pot of boiling water. Mrs. Guerin tried to stop him. "Are you mad, doctor? The bath is already too hot. I can hardly put my hand in it." But the doctor poured the boiling water into the bath. The boy didn't seem to mind. "That's incredible," said Mrs. Green. "It's as if he does not feel the heat." Dr. Ettard explained he has lived without clothes for most of his life. His skin has become insensitive. In time, he will feel the difference between hot and cold. As time passed and the boy had more hot baths, he became more sensitive. Soon he began to feel the cold when he got up in the mornings in just a shirt, so he started to get dressed by himself. One day he sneezed. Mrs. Guerin said, "That's the first time I have heard him sneeze." "Yes," said the doctor. "It must be the first time he has done that. Look, he has scared himself." Dr. Ettard and Mrs. Guerin were very patient with the boy, but it was not easy. At first, he went to the toilet all over the place. He played with food and hid it in his pocket. He tore his clothes, and when they tried to put shoes on him, he screamed and rolled around on the ground. Sometimes Dr. Ettard got angry. "I will show you what happens to naughty boys like you," he shouted. Then he shut the boy in a cupboard. It was a normal punishment for children in those days. The cupboard was very dark. The boy was scared in there. Even at night in the forest, it had never been as dark as in that cupboard. Slowly the boy learned to be clean. He started to use a plate and a spoon and to drink from a glass. But after his meals, he's often he did a strange thing. He filled his glass and went to the window. He stood there sipping his water and staring out at the trees in the garden. Mrs. Guerin watched him and sighed sadly. Poor boy, he must be homesick for the streams he drank from when he lived free in the forest. Chapter 3. A Name for the Boy. The months passed. The boy got used to living in the house. He still didn't speak, but he learned how to make himself understood. One evening, dinner was not quite ready, so he took the empty soup, turned tureen out of the cupboard, and handed it to Mrs. Green. She laughed. "Oh, you are hungry, are you? Well, give me your hand then." Mrs. Guerin took the water jug and held it upside down to show that it was empty. So the boy filled the jug and put it on the table. "Oh," said Mrs. Green, surprised. He had understood her. The boy smiled at her. "Dr. Ettard, he seems to like the sound. That gives me an idea. We still have not found a name for him. We could call him Oscar, as that's got an old sound in it. Or maybe Victor," said Mrs. Green. The boy turned to look at them again. "Did you see that, doctor? He likes the name Victor." Mrs. Guerin hugged the boy and said over and over again, "Victor, my little Victor, Victor." Dr. Ettard still hoped to teach Victor to speak. He tried to help him recognize different sounds, starting with the vowels. Victor often didn't pay attention, so the doctor would put a blindfold on him. They played a game. When the doctor said A, they had to put up his thumb. When the doctor said E, Victor had to put up his index finger. Usually Victor enjoyed these exercises and laughed a lot, but sometimes he put up any finger or even all of them at once. One day the doctor got angry. "Pay attention, Victor." Victor didn't seem to understand. So the doctor used a ruler to wrap his fingers when he made a mistake. Victor thought this was a new game and just laughed. The doctor lost his temper and hit Victor harder with the ruler. Suddenly Victor stopped laughing His mouth trembled and tears trickled down under the blindfold that covered his eyes. Dr. Itard was amazed. Victor was crying. It was the first time he had cried. The doctor pulled off the blindfold and put his arms around Victor. Don't cry, my boy. It's all over. The boy calmed down, but he understood the punishment. After that, he paid more attention and hardly made any mistakes. Some evenings, Victor was so tired that he got a nosebleed, and Mrs. Guerin got cross. That's enough, doctor. The child is exhausted. You are making him work for hours and hours. It's cruel. Some nights, Victor got up from his bed and went out into the garden to sit in the moonlight. Chapter 4. Difficult Lessons. Dr. Itard worked with Victor for several hours a day. Using bits of card, he taught the boy about shapes and colors. They played all sorts of games with different objects to develop Victor's memory. One morning, the doctor said to Mrs. Green, Victor is making good progress. I'm going to try to teach him to read and write. Then, even if he never manages to speak, he will be able to explain himself better than with gesture. Dr. Itard invented a new exercise. He took a key, a feather, a comb, a book, a hammer, and hooked them to a board. He wrote the name of each object on a piece of card. Victor understood that he had to match each piece of card to the right object. Dr. Itard was very happy with it. Very good, Victor. Now we will do something more difficult. Doctor put the object in another room that he pointed to a word, for example, come. And Victor had to go and get the object further, but found it very difficult. He didn't really know how to read. He tried to remember the shape of the words. He often forgot the names of the object he had to fetch. So he came back and using gesture, he asked the doctor to show him the word again. Slowly he managed to remember. Dr. Itard was proud of his pupil. See, Mrs. Guerin, Victor's memory isn't getting better. Mrs. Guerin hugged the boy. Very good, my dear. You have done enough work now. Come and have some tea. As Victor ate, Dr. Itard thought about what the boy was learning. I wonder if he really understands. When I showed him the word comb, he went to fetch the comb. But did he understand the word comb is the name of the object in writing? Did he understand that the letters form words and words have a meaning? The next day, the doctor tried another experiment. He locked the door to the room where he had put the object that he showed Victor the book card. Victor set up happily to find the book. When he realized the door was not open, he was upset. The doctor pretended to be surprised. He walked over to the door and shook it and said, What's wrong with this door? It is locked. Then he showed Victor the book card again and made him understand that he had to look in the room they were in. There were books on the table and on the ship. Victor didn't understand. He wanted to go and fetch the book that they used for this exercise. Dr. Itard felt frustrated. He shouted, I'm wasting my time on you, little idiot. We should have left you in the forest, locked you away for the rest of your miserable life. Victor looked at the door. He probably didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone of voice. He knew the doctor was angry with him. His chin began to tremble, and his eyes filled up with tears. Doctor immediately calmed down and gave the boy a hug. I'm sorry, Victor. It's my fault. I am the idiot. I went about it the wrong way. I can't expect you to understand. When Victor stopped crying, that doctor took several books off a shelf. One of them looked like the book they used to do the exercise. Victor immediately smiled. He grabbed the book and waved it happily. From that day on, things improved. Victor understood that the book referred to all the books and not just to one. Victor still could not speak, but he now understood that things had names and the words that were read or written down meant something. The seasons passed. Victor slowly became used to his new life. One in the morning, he woke and ran to the window. It had snowed during the night. Victor rushed out into the garden in bare feet and wearing only his shirt. He rolled around in the snow like a happy little dog. He put some snow in his mouth and laughed out loud. Chapter 5. A Terrible Test. One evening, Dr. Itard said, Do you think Victor is happy with us, Mrs. Guerin? Am I right to make him work so hard? Sometimes I wonder whether he was better off in the forest. Oh, doctor, said Mrs. Guerin, he must have been lonelier than any animal. would be in the forest. Now he knows that we love him, and he loves us. Do you really think so, Mrs. Garin? I do. When you say goodnight at bedtime, he always presses your hand to his cheek. Dogs also rub themselves against us when they want to be patted, said Dr. Ital. Don't say that. Victor is not a dog. Don't you remember the day he went out for a walk and got lost? Remember how he hugged me when I found him? Yes, Mrs. Gideon, but he sniffed you first to recognize you like a dog. Well, you always say his sense of smell is better developed than other children's. Babies also stop crying when they smell their mother. That's true, Mrs. Gideon. But Victor can speak. He will probably never speak. I wonder if he has just become a well-trained little animal. Mrs. Gideon didn't know how to reply to that. Dr. Itard paced up and down the room. Suddenly he stopped and said, Mrs. Gideon, I want to know if Victor understands right and wrong. What's fair and what's unfair. I'm going to do something cruel and even wicked, but I have to do it to find out how the boy thinks the next day. Dr. Itar worked with Victor as usual. Victor tried hard and got all his exercises right. He expected to be praised as he deserved, but instead the doctor suddenly threw all the cards and notebooks on the floor. Dr. Itar shouted, That's bad, Victor. You're not paying attention into the cupboard, you naughty boy. He grabbed Victor by the arms and pulled him towards the cupboard. Usually Victor didn't resist when he was punished, but this time, when the doctor opened the door of the cupboard, Victor struggled and pulled away. Dr. Ital tried to force him inside, but Victor was so angry that he kicked and scratched the doctor. Then he grabbed the doctor's hand and beat it really hard. Dr. Ital let go of Victor. His hand hurt so much that he had tears in his eyes. But they were also tears of joy. Well done, Victor. Well done, my boy. You are right. You worked hard and I punished you. You knew that it was not fair. I'm proud of you, my boy. Chapter 6. Escape. The days passed. Victor did his exercises, ate his meals, and went for walks. One very windy day, Victor fetched his coat and hat. He could not wait to go out for a walk. He still loved the wind, the rain, and even storm, but that day, Dr. Itar was not there, and Mrs. Guerin was ill, she said. No, Victor, put your coat away. We are staying indoors today. Victor seemed to understand and left the room. But a moment later, Mrs. Guerin heard the front door slam. She hurried over to the window and was just in time to see Victor disappearing. She cried, Victor, come back. It was too late. Victor had gone. When Dr. Richard came home, Victor still hadn't come back. Several days passed. They told the police, but Victor was nowhere to be found. Dr. Richard felt very sad. He said, It's over, Mrs. Gideon. Victor is not coming back. A few days later, the doctor was busy at his desk. He raised his head to look out of the window, and there was Victor in the garden. He was wet and dirty, and his clothes were torn. He had gone back to the forest and tried to live alone like before, but he didn't know how anymore. Victor was no longer a wild child. Dr. Itard stood up and ran downstairs, shouting, Mrs. Guerin, Victor is back. Mrs. Guerin had Victor in her arms and stroked his hair. Victor, my little Victor, has come back. The end.